This week on HomeKit News, the Arylic S10 Plus wireless music streamer with AirPlay. Welcome back everybody. In today's video we're looking at the Arylic S10 Plus, which is a wireless music streamer. This is an update to the company's S10 streamer that adds quite a few updates, many of which we'll be looking at today. The S10 Plus works with third-party streaming platforms like Spotify. It connects to your Wi-Fi network, which allows it to work with Apple AirPlay, although this is only AirPlay 1, not AirPlay 2. There are workarounds, however, if you want multi-room streaming, one of which uses their own protocol. And it can also access and play audio files via a built-in USB port. As already mentioned, it supports a lot of different streaming platforms, which also includes Amazon Music, as well as Apple Music via AirPlay and even radio stations. So what's in the box, I hear you ask? Well, the main thing is you get the rather small but perfectly formed S10 Plus. You also get a stereo 1/4 inch jack to jack cable, a stereo 1/4 inch jack to stereo phono cable, a USB-C to USB-A power cable, and unusually these days a provided USB power supply. To round things out, you also get a full infrared remote control for the S10 Plus, which has some nice extras. Let's now have a closer look at the S10 Plus, and one of the new features is a small OLED display. This shows icons for the different connection methods, as well as housing an IR receiver for the remote. This is a step up from the S10, which only featured small LEDs for the different input methods. Speaking of input methods, the rear of the device is replete with ports. There's an RJ45 port if you prefer a wired connection to your network, a USB-A port for playing music from a memory stick, a line-in port for connecting a CD player for example, a line out for an amp or powered speakers, as well as an optical output for digital audio. Finally, there's a USB-C port which allows you to stream music from a computer whilst also providing power. The top of the S10 Plus now features 4 touch controls with a button to select the different input methods, controls for the volume, and a play and pause button. I'm not a massive audiophile, but for those that want all the specs, feel free to pause the video at this point. For those that aren't familiar with AirPlay, here's a quick overview on how it works. So you can play music on your iPhone, iPad or Mac computer and have that music streamed to the S10 Plus, which in turn plays the music through an output device like a power amplifier, a soundbar or powered speakers. You can also connect a CD player to the S10 Plus, although you can't use AirPlay to stream audio from the CD player to other AirPlay devices. I'll now test out AirPlay just so you can see how it works with the S10 Plus, starting with some music playing on my iPhone. In this setup I have the S10 Plus connected to my network via Ethernet, with the streamer also connected to this soundbar via the digital output. So it starts off with streaming from Apple Music, and I can just go in and select the S10 Plus from the list of devices and it'll stream from the soundbar via the S10 Plus. The music I'm streaming here is my own work to avoid copyright issues, so feel free to check out the album on Apple Music if you like it. I can also pause the music directly from the buttons on top of the device, which is quite responsive, although as you'll see you have to press reasonably firmly for it to register. The delay in starting up is partly due to AirPlay 1 and streaming in general, I believe. As previously mentioned, I can also increase or decrease the volume directly from the device, which is reflected in Apple Music on my iPhone. For more control over the audio side of things, you can download the free Go Control app, which allows you to select the input method too. Whilst the music plays, I can also select EQ presets from a small list of options, like the standard classic, pop or jazz presets. I can also create my own EQ presets with the help of the built-in 8-band equalizer, where I can also store any of these presets that I create. As also mentioned, I can select from different types of inputs like Bluetooth, line-in or USB. Now I've connected a USB memory stick, and as you can see, the audio files are then listed inside the user interface. There's also a separate app called ForStream for setting up third-party streaming providers. So I'll just select the net option and I can stream from many of these providers or even radio stations like in this case BBC Radio 4.
Before being transferred by the British government for medical treatment, they agreed to meet with the BBC's Alice Cuddy in Kigali.
Strangely enough, although the S10 Plus only supports AirPlay 1, if I stream music from my iMac, unlike with iPhone, I can actually select the S10 Plus alongside other AirPlay devices. However, the audio streaming to the S10 Plus is not in sync with other AirPlay 2 devices. The remote control that comes with the S10 Plus is also quite handy, so in this test I'll stream some more of my music from the iPhone to the S10 Plus, and with the remote I can do almost everything you've seen me control before. So this includes things like adjusting the volume or controlling playback, pause and play for example. With the remote I can also adjust things like bass or treble. I can even reset the EQ, but also use the deep bass for more punch too. I can even mute the audio as well as turn the display off or even turn the device off altogether. Because the S10 Plus uses infrared, there are possibilities to use it with Apple Home to some degree. The Nature Remo Nano is a Matter-compatible IR transmitter that can pair to IR devices and expose up to 3 of them to Apple Home, although it would only be for on-off functionality. Unfortunately, if you have the SwitchBot Hub 2 or the new Hub Mini, both of which support Matter, you can do much the same thing, with the Hub 2 even having 2 programmable scene buttons. Lastly, there's the recently reviewed Aqara Hub M3, which is both a Matter bridge, Matter controller, Zigbee hub and thread border router, but also with IR functionality. Unfortunately, only AC control is exposed to Apple Home, but you can create a lot of scenes to control the S10 in Aqara and expose those scenes to Apple Home, so this is possibly an even more encompassing solution than the other two. On to the pros and cons, and I'm really happy to get a streaming device that I can connect to my network directly without having to use Wi-Fi for a change. So for me this is a plus over something like the Wii Mini, which I've reviewed, or the Belkin Soundform Connect. The dual-purpose USB-C port is pretty ingenious and makes the best of an underutilized port in many cases. Compared to the original S10, the S10 Plus does look a lot better due to the display, but also because of the on-device controls, so that's another plus. I don't tend to use streaming services very often if I'm honest, but it's great to have a larger choice presented here, especially for things like radio stations I may not ordinarily get access to. The remote is also a nice extra for those that either don't want to get their phone out or simply want quick access to the basics. Now the only downside is going to be pretty obvious, and it's a big one for many in that there's no AirPlay 2. In all honesty though, I tend not to stream music to all corners of the apartment, so it's actually not a big deal for me, although I can appreciate it could be a deal breaker for some. Either way, for around $69, this is a feature-packed device that does a lot more than you'd expect for that price. But let me know what you think in the comment section below and I'll always reply. In the meantime, if you like this video, do please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, but most importantly, subscribe if you haven't done so already. In the meantime, stay safe, and I'll leave you with this sage advice from Will Ferrell, who reportedly said, "Before you marry a person, you should first make them use a computer with slow internet to see who they really are."